Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. The RSI Scorpius Antares has now been revealed. We're going to talk about this new EMP quantum interdiction ship, and we're also going to be looking at some dev responses about weapon and component variety for ships. The RSI Scorpius Antares has been revealed on a tweet after a couple of days of talking about a new ship and teasing it. Cloud Imperium said on Twitter, "Alright, we're done teasing. Redesigned to house a devastating EMP device and quantum jammer, we'd like to introduce you to the RSI Scorpius Antares, coming in Alpha 3.18. Now, Antares, or Antares, I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced. I think it's Antares. So bear that in mind. I might just interchangeably use them because I'm a monster. Some deepest lore. Antares is the brightest star in the constellation of Scorpius, and is referred to as the heart of the Scorpion, that star. That said, the Star Citizen sort of galaxy isn't based on a real galaxy. It is, heavily gamified in its own sort of creature. So, what does this mean for the Scorpius? What's going on with this? A lot of people have been saying that this is an example of power creep. So, I want to discuss that a little bit and go into that. So, I suppose, really, let's talk more about what we know about the ship. And that's very little. We know that it's both a EMP and QED, quantum entanglement device ship. So that's pretty interesting. That's pretty powerful because the shell of the ship is a heavy fighter. It looks like it's going to lose its turret though. So it looks like it's becoming a single-seater for that variant. And that means it loses a lot of firepower and the ability to have that very useful turret. But becoming a single-seater heavy fighter has its advantages as well, because now you can optimally use it with just a single pilot. And then you have this huge amount of additional utility with that EMP and quantum entanglement device. Once we have the physicalized components and the resource management system, all sorts of stuff in-game, EMPs should deal distortion damage effectively to individual components that aren't shielded and that sort of stuff, turning particular components on your ship off, making them temporarily disabled. When used effectively, EMPs, they could be quite devastating. Quantum entanglement devices, they basically either prevent you from going into quantum or pull you out of quantum. A lot of people are also going to say, QED, doesn't that mean quantum enforcement device? Yes, it does. I've just got used to calling it quantum entanglement device because it makes more sense to me. So apologies for anyone I've confused. But basically, you either get the ability to do a quantum snare, which pulls people out of going into quantum, or you do a quantum dampening, which prevents them from going into quantum. I think the Mantis here, though, potentially is in a dire spot. It's an RSI ship as well, and it is a dedicated QED ship. It's lightly armored. Maybe it's going to be a bit faster and more agile, yes, but RSI also having another QED ship with that EMP as well, and a lot more armament and armor and power. To me, it just looks better than the Mantis. It's possible it doesn't get all the features. It's possible that it can only quantum snare or quantum dampen. Now, QED and EMPs are available to use in-game now as well, so that's an interesting one. I find them very poorly balanced and not utilised that much, but that will certainly change in the future, especially when Cloud Imperium look like they are wanting to do more on that gameplay, because this ship is available in Alpha 3.18, and there's a suggestion there because of that they're going to make some additional improvements to EMP and QED gameplay. And that kind of makes sense, especially with 3.18 having that soft destruction system where ships are very much boardable after they've been sort of destroyed. Another thing is, could we see some medium fighters or heavy fighters also get some modular parts for EMPs or QEDs? Because that looks a lot more possible now that they've got the Antares sort of variant. I do think it's a bit of a concern for power creep. Hopefully, in time, that concern proves to be unjustified, though. Price-wise, I think I'm expecting it to be available from $260, maybe $280 between that sort of range. I'm almost certainly going to be upgrading my Scorpius to the Antares variant. Please bear in mind that a lot of what we talked about was just speculation on what we think the ship is going to be able to do. Maybe it does have a second seat, and that's the person that controls the QED and EMP device, but that looks unlikely. I'm interested to know what you think of the ship. Where does it fit in the pantheon? Does it just make the Mantis sort of obsolete? how much do you think it's going to be? Weapon and component variety, an update would be great, is a thread that I saw on Spectrum. So let's go through what the original poster said. A number of patches ago, groups of weapons and shields were largely homogenized in what was explained at the time as a temporary simplification exercise. It's been like that for some time now, and I'm unaware of any work being undertaken to move us out of this paradigm. Am I missing something from the roadmap, or are CIG happy with where we currently are, i.e. have things changed? I'm currently wondering how you'll introduce weapons like the Yen 2 repeaters when the Santok Yai comes out, or fix the Defender Tachyons. YogiClat answered this. Weapon balancing and diversification is currently happening in Squadron 42. The weapons that are being used for Squadron get the treatment first, others will follow. I can't tell though when the work will hit the persistent universe. There was a follow-up question. If I remember correctly, didn't Blizzard end up having problems with balancing for single player before multiplayer? I think they ended up having to have multiplayer unit stats be very different from the single player, thus the feel a user would get from the single player game ended up throwing them off for multiplayer. YogiClat again responded, we have a fixed scheme how vehicle weapons scale, how much damage they do, etc. That is all based on PvP stats. The Squadron 42 weapons follow the same scheme, and we're trying to avoid differences in Squadron 42 and Persistent Universe weapons to keep consistency between both games. Also, for the sake of reducing the amount of data records. Tuning in terms of weapons versus how much damage is applied is managed via damage modifiers that can be easily tuned for every encounter and difficulty setting. This is actually already happening in the Persistent Universe as well. AI ships often get between 1.5 to 3 times more damage when being shot at by players, but there's nothing new. We had this for years this way, so in this regard, there's not really a multiplayer versus single player tuning problem. There was another follow-up question. If I remember correctly, then the goal was NPCs are indistinguishable from players. Is this still the goal? If yes, does it make sense if NPCs get more damage by players, or is that sort of a mid-term solution and that will change later? I have no idea on whether or not it's useful or whether the goal is achievable or not. I only remember that there was this statement and would like to know if that goal still exists. YogiClat again responds, that goal has not changed, but the devil is in the detail and depends on what indistinguishable really means. Damage, application, flight behavior, AI situational awareness, etc. In general, AI units pilot the same ships with the same equipment and capabilities and restrictions that player ships have, and when AI ships fight against AI ships, they adhere to the same rules as players. Things, however, become a bit more complex when it comes player versus AI interactions. In those cases, we often need what I would call control measures to shape interesting encounters, and the damage modifiers are just one example of that. Having AI pilots restrictions on their capabilities would be another example. But which of these control measures are used and to what extent is in the hands of individual designers of a scenario. As an example, about 2 or 3 weeks ago, Diego asked me to fight against this new AI algorithm in a Squadron 42 Gladius, master mode tuning, no modifiers, 2 size 3 repeaters, 1 size 3 Gatling on gimbals in a 1v1. Without any of the normal modifiers, I was basically not a match for it. The AI was very aggressive, extremely good with its distance control, and never took any breaks. My capacitor systems tired out very fast as I was constantly trying to dodge incoming salvos. I barely landed shots without getting damaged myself, so I lost that fight. That is a feeling that some upper-ranked PvP pilots might know pretty well and thrive on, but for a low-skilled PvE player who just wants to complete a mission, that scenario might also have been nothing but frustrating, and this is why control measures are so important, because they allow to easily tweak the challenge level of a scenario. On paper, that might miss the mark of being completely indistinguishable from real players, but let's not forget that at the end of the day, we're trying to create a fun game, and there are more things out there that can create believability than just weapon damage numbers. Hope that makes sense. Yet another follow-up question, talking about PvE difficulty this time, where the original poster says, don't babysit every player for the sake of we're trying to create a fun game. Having an AI take from 1.5 to 3 times more damage with a multiplier is just killing the thrill of it. YogiClat is there again and says, I did not say at all that we're babysitting people or that we're making the game super easy for everyone. I am simply saying that there are ways to scale difficulty in either direction, and that pure player versus AI ship combat can be pretty brutal when all the safeties are off. In the end, we want the game to give enough valid PvE gameplay options for both inexperienced and experienced players. Are we there yet? No, not yet. I thought that was an absolutely fantastic exchange from a dev response, just because I love it when devs get involved with the community and actually answer some questions. I'm sort of like that. But yeah, weapon varieties, component variety, it's important that we have those in game because they'll make the game a lot more enjoyable again. I really like customizing ships. I really like choosing my components. We know that Cloud Imperium are working on it for Squadron 42. We know that they're also working on the resource management system and physicalized components and things like that, which they'll want to get into the game. And once we have all those things, well, yeah, they can have the sort of ship combat in a much better state and actually start to balance it for the final game. But also, balance is a monster, especially with a complex game like Star Citizen. But I'm really interested to know what you think. Are you excited that Cloud Imperium are releasing that Antares Scorpius EMP QED ship? Do you think it's awesome? Do you think it's a terrible idea? Do you think it's greedy or an example of power creep? Or are you just happy to see more and more ships in game and you're excited to see them potentially have a bit more balance and work on EMPs and QEDs? Are you like me as well, keenly awaiting for components and weapon variation to come back into the game in full force? And do you really enjoy customizing your ships, and is that something that you miss from like EVE Online? Whatever your thoughts though, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below.
That's the last chevron locked in, Mr. Daniel Jackson, who is legally distinct from any doctors of the same name. We've done it. We've connected to another world. Daniel Jackson, we're being hacked through the gates to the stars, which is also legally distinct from any other gates that travel to the stars. We should have got NordVPN, Daniel Jackson. We would have been able to browse the internet safely, accessed our favourite content on Netflix, and we would have been able to have privacy. We would have had less of these Egyptian-looking snake people attacking us too.
You should check out nordvpn.com/BoredGamer and get yourself a great deal on NordVPN. Just click the link in the comments section below. Every month we have a ship giveaway. For February, it's for a Crusader Spirit C1, the very cool looking multi-crew, multi-role competitor to the Cutlass Black and Freelancer. As it's a concept ship, you'll get a Cutlass Black until it's made flyable. You'll get lifetime insurance with the ship and a game package for Star Citizen 2, so all you need to play. Just comment on any of my videos made during the month to be in for a chance of winning that. If you would like to further support the channel, then consider becoming a Patreon or using that join button under my YouTube videos to become a channel member. It goes a massive way to helping us make videos every day, and you'll get some exclusive content from me and Zinnia from time to time too. Become a board gamer today!